Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the collective. Apologies on the late start. I was having a issue with my computer. It did not turn out the way I want. Well, it turned out the way I wanted it to because now we're talking. So that's good. Um, for those that don't know, before we get into anything, I want to remind everybody to make sure that you like the show, you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and then you'll be notified every time we go live, which is every day. First thing, want to introduce Bob. We were going to have Tip on as well. Unfortunately, he got caught in traffic in good old-fashioned London and will not be back home for quite some time. So,
enjoy Tip.
Yeah, exactly. But Bob here is, now correct me if I'm wrong here, you're a former rugby player and strength and fitness coach for I can't remember which team specifically. I'm drawing a blank on that one.
I am, yes.
Which team are you the coach for?
Widnes Vikings.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so
How long have you been playing rugby?
I played rugby for nearly 20 years, 18 years, professionally. Started off in 2004, I think, and retired just over a year ago. Yeah, really, really grateful to come out of it relatively healthily in my body as well.
That's a tough man's sport.
Definitely.
Some would say.
Yeah. I think it is, man. I think it is. I mean, compared to like tiddlywinks, if we're contextualizing.
Yeah, if that's the scale we're going off, yeah. So.
That's a good scale to go off of, either rugby or tiddlywinks. I like that's
Gotta put it in perspective.
Well, today we're gonna have some. We've got comments already. Daniel says best sport in my view. I'm a toss up. I love watching my hockey, but I do love watching rugby too. That's there. I think hockey is kind of like rugby on ice, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
So I got a quick question for you, Bob. Not that this is kind of how we do things over here. So I was born in England, lived there 10 years, but half of my family is in Northern Ireland, so I got a bunch of cousins over there, etc. My good cousin Brian, over there in Omagh County, Tyrone, came up through the system playing Gaelic football or hurley, however you want to term it. And I've watched him play that sport, and that is a freaking rough sport, man. Like, I don't know how rugby players view the Gaelic version of that madness, but it's almost like open warfare on the pitch sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was in Dublin working last week, and I managed to watch a Gaelic football game for the first time in my life, and I absolutely loved it.
National it's tough, hey?
Ireland, all amateur.
Oh, we lost him. Oh my
Dude,
goodness,
that's not right.
Oh, how are you right gonna in the middle of a conversation? He's got to rejoin. I can't.
Oh my goodness,
I don't know what happened there. Well,
I don't know. I'm gonna make sure that it's your fault, though.
Okay,
Chance Bros, what did you do wrong?
I did not set him up correctly. That is
correct.
What I did. Yeah,
correct. You did not set him up for success.
I should have set him up for success better. Well, for those that don't know, what is the difference between regular rugby and Gaelic rugby?
Well, I'm not the expert. I was hoping that Bob, who just evaporated, would have the answer.
Me too. I was going to ask him, but then he disappeared.
I mean, I've watched them both a number of times, and I'm just not the right guy to make, determined comments.
Raj,
get that guy back.
I'm in the midst of it. Don't you worry. We got oh man, Daniel and Winterstorm already. First off, Winterstorm, morning. Good to see you, Daniel. Always good to see you as well. Apparently, Daniel played the fullback position, which is I only played for a little bit myself. I played in high school, actually a long time ago, but I had
it wasn't my thing.
No. I had knee braces after I got hit by a car, and they had a hard plastic plate in them, and I got told that I was not allowed to wear them.
Yeah, of course.
And that was that. So that was the end of my rugby time.
It never even started.
Yeah. What do you got here? Rugby is drinking with some sport thrown in at the beginning.
It's kind of like fighting with some sport thrown in.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you?
There he's back.
Good man.
We've made it,
man.
Huzzah! Are you good to go?
I mean, I think so. That has literally never happened to me in my life. So
it's never happened over here before, but we always blame Chance whenever those kind of things happen. So
my fault, 100%. I was gonna ask, what's the difference between like rugby and Gaelic rugby?
So, from what I can see from my experience watching Gaelic football, is you get 3 bounces with the ball in Gaelic football. You can kick it and you can throw it forwards. You can throw it or kick it over the post. You get 1 point through the net in the goal. You get 3 points. There's different amount of participants on each team. The game is shorter. The halves are shorter as well. That being said, there's more contact in rugby league. It's over 80 minutes. There's less players on the pitch, and yeah, it seems like played with a funny shaped ball, similar to the American football.
It kind of sounds,
yeah.
It kind of sounds like a mixture between soccer, American football, rugby, and something else. Maybe like if you're
Open
throwing
warfare.
it and open warfare. I like
Exactly
it.
that.
Oh yeah, you came in right as I just put this down. But Winterstorm here, one of our longtime listeners and commenters, says rugby is drinking with some sport thrown in at the beginning.
I agree.
What do you think? Yeah, totally agree. 100%.
I agree. Yeah.
Do you know what it is? And maybe you could make reference to this. As I've always seen it, rugby is camaraderie. Like that shared effort, that shared, like, I'm not going to say shared violence, but that shared, like, bumps and bruises moments out there. There's nothing like bonding with a dude who is trying to put his broken nose back on his face and giving you the nod, and now you're all having a pint at the pub. Camaraderie. The rugby players that I know are tight.
It's funny you say that, because even obviously within the team, you've got a certain element of respect for each other. You've got the people that do all the hard work, the middles or whoever, or somebody shows up when it's tough. But then similar, you've got the opposition as well, that you can beat 7 bells out of with each other and then share that same pint with at the end, or shake a hand. And there's that mutual respect, similar to, I suppose, fighting. When you see fighters, all the war, pre-match, pre-fight, and then at the end of it, they shake hands, they show a lot of love and respect. And I think it's very similar in that regard.
I think that's kind of key in the sense of to give respect to someone or be in a respectful environment. It takes like adversity. You don't even have to know a guy, but if you're sharing a really adverse moment, a guy or a girl will always get my nod if they're in the mix.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I had heard there's a line in, I think it's Invictus, the movie. They were saying that what is it? Soccer is it's a gentleman's sport played by hooligans, and rugby is a hooligans game played by gentlemen. I was like, thought that was awesome.
So, I suppose, humbling about beating each other up for 80 minutes, and then you come off the field, you can barely walk, and then okay, well done, I'll see you next time. That kind of, it's kind of weird. It's a weird thing. Obviously, you know about that.
I think it's great in the terms of, as Shaun was saying, in the camaraderie, in the ability to bond, but it's kind of like fighters too. Like when you're boxing or doing jiu-jitsu, or a shared hardship in that, like, we're gonna kick each other's ass. This is just the way it is. But then you can bow to each other, you can shake hands afterwards and be like, man, that was awesome. That was just awesome. Regardless who won, doesn't matter. It just, you can enjoy the time of pushing yourself to the limit, I guess. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially with jiu-jitsu. Somebody literally has got you, and if they wanted to, they could end you. And they chose not to, because for whatever reason, you said thank you.
Because they're a nice person.
Because they're a nice person. I like
deep down. Yeah.
So, Bob, I got a question for you. Now, you say that you've been involved in rugby for about 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And in that career path, did you how much did you spend as the player, and how much did you spend as a leader or as a coach?
Okay, so starting my career at 18, so I suppose nearly 17 years of that I was as player, and now I've transitioned into coaching towards the backroom staff. And towards the back end of my career, my rugby career, I suppose I moved into a more captain role, where I captained the last team I played for, which is up in Newcastle, northeast of England. So I suppose the latter end of my career, 33 onwards, I suppose I fully understood myself, was comfortable in the role, and was happy to pass on to the younger generations and teammates. So that's something came later for me in life, especially in my rugby career.
Right.
So, yeah.
So then, as a follow-on question, because my background, I've had several careers, but the one that I left just recently was 15 years of high performance coaching athletes around the world in ultra endurance racing.
Wow.
And I've coached a lot of athletes in a lot of different weird ways. So, as a coach, looking at you as a coach, I'm curious as to how you set yourself up in the position that you're in right now, not through a formal education. I'm not saying what courses did you take.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is because I didn't take any courses. I learned in the trenches. And so did you go through any formal training, or do you find yourself in a position now where you're coaching through, I'll call it quote unquote, just experience?
No, so I suppose obviously academia will give you the foundation of underpins your philosophy in terms of coaching. But everything else has to be learned through experience and mentorship and making mistakes and watching mistakes from other people, being curious, learning, listening, observing. And it's put me in a position now where I've got the respect because I played over 400 professional games, so the players know that I've done the job. I think that's really key.
It is.
Somebody coming straight out of university, with high academic achievements, but yet no experience in that sport. I think they're at a loss straight away, or they have to work a little harder. And I'm saying so. I'm very fortunate to be in that position. So right now I'm just prioritizing what's actually important for the team, for the individual, for that moment, in terms of the culture, the atmosphere, the exercise, and sets and reps are less important more than the general momentum of the team. So that's probably where I'm stepping back and overseeing everything as a bigger picture.
That's awesome.
This is what we need now. This is what we need, and this is how I'm going to implement it. The players don't know that, but myself and the backroom staff, Sam, my good friend, that you had on a few weeks ago, we speak quite a bit on reflective practice and how you can cultivate some time of change without them knowing it. Ethical manipulation, we call it, I think.
Dude, I do it all the time. I mean, I don't even apologize for it anymore.
Yeah.
I just feel that it's one of the most effective tools that as coaches we can use like a scalpel. No one needs to know that we're doing it,
No.
but if they want to know, I'm happy to explain it to them. And actually, to this point, when I left my coaching career just over a year ago, when I turned my coaching reins over to the athlete that I'd coached for just over a decade, when I said to her, "Tag, you're it, go do better," I had to have these deeper conversations with her, explaining to her what I was doing to her in order for her to understand what I was doing to her, so that then as a coach, she could do it to others. And so there's a time and place where you kind of have to, as I see it, I'm not speaking for anyone else. This is what I had to do. I had to figure out how to become a good coach and hold my kind of tools closer to my chest so that I could just focus on coaching. And then as I became more and more comfortable with coaching, I became more and more comfortable with explaining my theoretical models and my philosophies and my so on and so forth, kind of passing it on just before I bounced. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes complete sense to myself. But with the athlete, you've just got to have that trust. You have that trust, and you're going to meet people that don't trust you for whatever reason. So that you can spend energy trying to earn that trust. But at some point, you have to obviously learn when to let go of that athlete's energy as well, or where to put my energy. It's funny because you mentioned, if one of your colleagues wants to continue that path, you would give them the world. You will put all your energy into that. But you've chosen that. Where to put your energy.
It's tricky, isn't it?
It's tricky, yeah. And I made mistakes last year that I won't hopefully make again. But that's part of it. So we have 2 interns coming in from university, and I'm trying to not tell them everything, trying to let them experience it and feel it themselves without being.
It's tricky. It is tricky, right?
It's ace, isn't it? It's so good.
It's not quite a razor's edge sort of balance, but it's tricky enough that I actually loved it because I understood the weight of the moment in the sense of what I was doing was important for the future. But I also love the intellectual challenge of determining how to best trickle feed out the data or best trickle feed out the philosophy or the blah, blah, blah overarching theme at the right time and the right place to make the right impact. Plant the seeds and sometimes not talk about them, and plant the seeds and sometimes say, that's the seed that I just planted, germinate it. It's a fascinating it's a fascinating puzzle. I loved doing it.
No, I really do. It takes a lot of energy, but and also the thing that's just sticking out in my end is being able to pull your plans at the last minute if you feel that that's your decision. So you make an absolute decision straight away. Go, no, we're changing based off your intuition and your gut that can only be developed through experience, can't it? To have an
That's
accurate
right.
one or
That's right.
that's how I see it anyway. And I'm just making it up. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, me too. That's
Yeah,
that's
we're-
what even right now we're just making it up. But definitely in coaching, I was making it up. And the fascinating thing that I'm sure if you haven't already experienced it, you'll experience it shortly, is that once you get your rhythm of feel like the choices that you're making are good choices and blah blah blah. You've seen the trend, the timeline, and it's all supporting that you're on the right path. Then you get to play, but not play thoughtlessly. You get to play thoughtfully. And it's not that you've got your little puppet master strings where you're moving the whole team. You're doing good for good people. And if you're playfully being awesome, man, it's the best path. I loved being a coach.
It's nice to watch people get better. Like it's to be able to actually watch that is fantastic. Now we have a couple comments and a question. So first one, correction. First one was ask Bob just how much they love to scrum. I imagine it's good times in there.
Daniel, right, okay. So just to stress, I'll clarify that I played rugby league. So rugby league is a different version of rugby to rugby union. So rugby league is 13 men aside. It's a predominantly northern sport, although we did play in North America and Canada for Toronto. But we may get into that. So the scrum is very different in rugby league than it is to rugby union, which is obviously widely known as rugby, which is something that I'm fighting against. I don't believe that rugby is the 15-man version. I'm fighting from Wigan to say that no, there's two different versions. So the scrum is it's quite boring in rugby league.
I didn't know any of this. This is fascinating.
So basically, what we do in the scrum is talk about what we're doing after, or we're poking somebody in the eye, pulling someone's nose, twisting someone's leg. You're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, or you're having a rest, and you've got that empathy for each other. That you say, this is a really fast game. This is quite tiring. What are you doing after? All right, see you later, and then you run off.
That's cool.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So it's actually not. It's a non-functioning part of the game, I think.
I love that. Well, then there you go. I think I've learned. I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got Winter Storm says, I love my time as a flanker and a back. Everyone had a role and responsibility, but the flow of the game dictated your need to adapt. I do love that. How people just flow in and out of positioning and taking a spot where they need it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Union, so there's quite a few similarities, but then stark differences as well. So, what you tend to get in rugby union is with 15, 1 to 15, but the positions are more specific in terms of body type. So you'll have a short, stockier prop hooker because they need to have that robustness, that wide base to perform the scrum effectively. And then you've got the wingers that are usually quite tall and fast and thin. That's just how it is in rugby league, because the game involves changing positions quite often, being in the wrong position at the wrong time, etc. You have a more consistent body type throughout. So you might have 14 to 17 stone athletes throughout the field, throughout each position, and they can all run 112 seconds or whatever it is. So pretty quick and pretty strong. But in rugby union, you might have a massive difference between the top and bottom, or between positions. So it's quite interesting.
That is interesting. I did not know that. This is fantastic. I'm learning so much already. We're only 20 minutes in, and I'm like, my brain is like awesome.
So speaking of weight deltas or difference on the field, athletes being not only taller or shorter or wider or thinner, but performance-based athletes, as maybe professionals will call it, how much time do you find is spent working on things like how to get better sleep, better nutrition, better hydration, managing stress, blackout curtains at night, et cetera, all the tools, all the tips, all the tricks? How much time do you spend in that as a coach?
So it comes down to resources. So the when I was at Toronto, the Wolfpack, so I was partly in charge of the strength and conditioning as well, which is great because we're dealing with jet lag, we're dealing with transatlantic flights.
Yeah.
So we invested in those kind of practices like blackout curtains for the lads that got to the hotel.
Nice.
Different supplements to keep them awake, take them to sleep. Also the recovery in terms of the ice baths, some explored cryotherapy, and then the stress. Obviously, we do a daily wellness score as well. So what actually is stressful to you, because it's obviously a perception as well. But at the minute, because of our resources are quite limited, we don't touch on that. So simply put, in the top division in Super League, so the NFL, I suppose, Division 1, or I don't know how to quite make it relatable.
Yeah, top tier, we'll call it.
Yeah, top tier, yeah. They'll have unlimited resources and they can look at nutrition in a more specific way. Whereas we may just say, listen, lads, you've got a game tomorrow. Don't be eating takeaway tonight.
Yeah. Leave the crisps in the bag.
Exactly. And then you just hope some of it sinks in, because you've got to appreciate as well, some of these lads work 8 hours a day and then come and train and then go home. So if I'm trying to give them the best supplements, the best nutritional advice, they're probably going to tell me to do one. Because they just need a little bit of comfort or break. And we're slowly drip feeding that in. We've actually just partnered with a nutrition company now, which is going to take us to the next level, which I'm really excited about.
Nice.
But again, choosing how much to give the lads at the moment, and then let it absorb, for want of a better expression, is an art in itself, isn't it?
It is, but the great thing about that art is, as you full well know, I'm sure, it's about figuring out the right resources to deploy in the near and mid-term. Yeah. And it's sometimes less about cost, or even less about effectiveness. And it's more about the psychology of letting the troops know, or the team know, that I got your back. I'm on it. We're moving forward. We're getting better. Here's some ideas that we're thinking about in the near future. What do y'all think? And so that buy-in of, we're doing our best because we want to do the best for you, and etc. That's a pretty powerful psychological tool, irrespective of whether the nutrition improves or not, Well,
they can feel it. They can feel that if the staff care about them as people or as athletes, they can feel that. 100%. So hopefully they understand that the staff care about their performance, and they are willing to explore these options in terms of partnership with the nutrition companies to help performance on the field. It's ultimately for them, which is for us, because the team does better, we do better.
That's right. That's right.
It's not selfless at all. It's for us as well. We're trying to do a good job.
But the great part about whether it, as long as it's a win-win,
yeah,
shoot up the fireworks, baby. If they're getting better, you're getting better. Everyone's like, it's a big positive spiral up towards the stratosphere. Freaking awesome.
That's the point.
Yeah. We got a question for you here from Winterstorm. Has he found any lessons he learned during his rugby career that was of particular value outside of rugby that you were surprised helped?
Oh, that's a really good question. I suppose during my career, you may, as in any sporting game, you'll go up and down in terms of success. The highs of any sporting game, nothing ever goes your way. So you have to develop a certain element of resilience. And then through one period of my career, it involved like a significant head injury, which was in the grand final, essentially, to go back into the top tier. I got knocked out in the last 10 seconds, which then subsequently led me down a path of mental health challenges, and then financial implications as well. So I'd say that moment, looking back, there's a great story called The Story of the Chinese Farmer by Alan Watts. If you've not checked it out, check it out. It's great.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it talks about, things happen, or instances happen, or circumstances change. It's neither good nor bad. It's what you do with the information, or how you adapt and how you move forward. So from that moment, at that point, would literally be the worst moment in my life. My worst professional moment, my worst moment in my personal life. But yet again, that was the turning point to lead me to where I am now. So it's the brilliant, it's the brilliant realization of that.
Life is fun.
You can come through those challenges, those adversities. So I suppose one lesson that I didn't plan for was that moment. I was never been as certain in my life that I was going to get the victory in that game. And then I wake up in the changing rooms, and for the 10th time I'm asking my buddy, did we win? And he's like, no, I think you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, right, okay. And then,
yeah, you won a trip to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say that taught me how to come through adversity, taught me how to be honest, be true, be authentic. As the you're talking 6, 12 months of work, of graft, self development, of awareness. So that moment for me changed my life, and I'm truly grateful for it.
Yeah, that's a
That's
great,
fantastic.
great answer. We got one more, and then we'll dive into a topic here. We'll never get into these topics. But Daniel asks, music before hitting the field. What was that specific song that got the lads heightened to kill?
Right, well, this is a funny one because I'm quite particular about. I nearly wore my Johnny Cash t-shirt tonight, and I thought he can't because he's got his finger up on the t-shirt. So I went for a plain black
Good
t-shirt.
call.
Yeah, so I read the rules. So lads have a very particular taste in music, and I do not share that. I have taste. They do not have taste. So I put headphones
They rarely
on.
do.
I put headphones on and I listen to Johnny Cash, Falls in Prison, Boy Named Sue, all the old classics, a little bit of Metallica, and then I just crack on my merry way. That's it. The lads tend to, I think the generation these days is different to mine. Like mine's have a melody, have chords, have a bridge, have all these things, and the younger generation, I don't think that's the same anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a want to be rock star anyway myself. So
There you go.
You're kind of pulling it off right now.
A little bit. All right, well, let's dive into the topic, and it actually goes into kind of what we're talking about today. Is I wanted to ask about managing the process, which, I mean, everything is a process, right? And when you're learning a new skill or you're trying to develop a more robust mental health, resiliency, or whatever it is you want to talk about, it's a process. And it's a long-term thing that you want to either change or engage or get better at or whatever. But that takes managing, right? You're going to have, as you said, successes. You're going to have failures. You're going to have bumps in the road. You're going to have issues. What are some of the, maybe the lessons that you could partake and, or pass on, I should say, for managing that process of getting better, learning something new, whatever? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so it's funny you say that because recently, as most professional athletes do, they need, we've been accustomed to physical pain, challenge, and then over that period what I spoke about from that game, I realised quite a few things about myself, my core values. And one of those things is discipline, curiosity, willingness to learn. So I need to learn a new skill. I like that. I value that. I got purpose in that. So I've took up jiu-jitsu, which I'm really happy to say. So all I can talk about in terms of realistically in the last 8 months is enjoying the ups and downs of learning a new move, learning a new position, the physical pain that will come with it because it's connected with my values. Because when you come off the mat, in terms of jiu-jitsu, and you might have had a really bad roll, you think, why am I even doing this? I feel like quitting, I'm rubbish. I got tapped out 10 times today. And
Yes,
nothing's
you
sinking
did.
in. Yeah, and listen, but then I've made peace with the fact that, okay, well, I'm doing this for these reasons in terms of it's connecting with it's got my physical health looking after, I've got community, I've got a sense of personal growth, I'm learning a new skill, and it's enjoyable. I actually enjoy problem solving. There's a little bit of brain work that goes on there as well, and while I'm in there, I'm present. So all these things, I'm like, you know what, I should go back and do it all again. So for me, that was it. It was just the process. If enough of the task connects to my personal values or my core values, then I'm cool with the process.
That's awesome. Shaun, any thoughts?
Well, I like it because what I hear from Bob is that he's re-engaging in a process that he already full well understands. It's just a new thing called BJJ, perhaps, but it's probably how you started your rugby career. I mean, you enjoyed the physicality, you enjoyed solving the puzzle, it felt right to you, your core values, you were learning things, blah, blah, blah. I mean, is there any difference between BJJ and rugby other than the notable aspect that no one was trying to kill you quite as quickly in rugby versus BJJ? So is there a wild difference between the two if you step back from a more of a satellite view and look at them?
I think when I was playing rugby, I had a bigger ego. So I think that led me to some success in terms of my focus for the week, for the months, for the whatever, however long that focus was all about me. quite selfish in some regards, and I believe that was necessary to be professional for 18 years. But in terms of jiu-jitsu, I think for obviously your role, you can't have an ego, can you? So I think
Well, the idea is to try to get rid of it. That's true.
So pretty quickly I realised that, you know what, this is such a humbling sport by very dangerous people that are capable of things, but they choose to not be dangerous. They choose to want to learn and share information, and it just connects. Like we talk about. You spoke earlier about helping people. You want to see them develop. Well, I think, you know, if you roll with somebody that's pretty knowledgeable, they'll say, next time try and do this, and that'll save you. You're like, right, okay, that's worth its weight in gold. I would literally pay money to hear that information. So yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Those are great.
Well, the good news is, because I feel like I've been coaching people a long, long time, well before my 15-year high performance coaching career. The good news is, as a coach yourself, at some point in your BJJ path, and I'm 7.5 years into my BJJ path,
Nice.
some point you'll be good enough, or you'll feel right enough about the moment that you'll cross the line over to now you're helping someone else. And that will feel so good to you as your core coaching sort of spirit. Then you're in the double game, you know? You're in the game that you're enjoying, plus you're in the game that you also enjoy, which is helping other people while you're helping yourself. It's a super powerful, you're going to love it, man.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like teaching BJJ, especially when you can get your students to try to choke the life out of you. Those are always good days.
Well, I've got I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm keen to get her into it.
Absolutely.
Just to teach her a little bit of resilience, to teach her a bit of adversity. And I don't think I'm qualified to teach her how to strangle people yet, so I need someone that's qualified.
Sure you are. Listen, if you go to my Instagram feed, my Instagram stories last night, or the Instagram feed that I put up yesterday evening, it's my son, my oldest son, Evan, who is now 19 years old. He's been on the mats with me for 7 years, and he's my favorite rolling partner. And he's my trickiest partner, by the way, because he's been my main partner ever since we tap bumped 7+ years ago. He knows my game better than I know my game. I know his game better than he knows his game. And when we're both together, which is all the time, I try to roll with him the most. It's a fun game, man. It's really, really fun. And doing it with your children, man, I've bonded so closely to my boys through BJJ. You're going to love it with your daughter.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I got both my boys in BJJ as well. They both started it. My oldest started at 5. He's been doing it for 4 years, and my youngest just started a year ago at 4. So they're gonna be monsters when they're older, and I gotta keep training so they don't destroy me later on.
It's a sense on that. It's a sense of like they're good at something as well. Like they're getting better at something, because they're going to see progress. I know you're talking about process, but they're going to feel like they belong, or they've got a strength with it. You know, if they're good at art, or they're good at drawing, or they're good at maths or something else, then this could be something else that they may turn to at times when they get tough or they get sad. But actually, I'm worth something. You know,
Oh, yeah. Dude,
cool. I think it's cool.
What is super cool, I can see it with my own boys, but certainly with my oldest son, because he's a handful, man. Like, I mean, he'll put it on most people and they'll be really surprised, because he just doesn't look that way, or he doesn't come across that way. So to my point, he grew up on the mats around a bunch of men. So he spent most of his young life around grown men, listening to grown men, being comfortable. At the age of 12, he was putting it on guys who were twice his size, you know? And so now I watch him walk into a room full of, we'll call it men, in any building or in any setting or outdoors, it doesn't matter. He just kind of casually glides up, non-factor, gray man, doesn't make a fuss, will nod and smile and not really talk too much per se. But you know who the most comfortable man in that group is? My son. Because he knows there's nothing can happen. Nothing can go wrong. Nobody can bring enough heat to make it be bad for him. So he just steps in confidently, owning the world around him with a sense of ease. He's way less scrappy than a lot of his buddies, because he knows he doesn't need to scrap, because what's the point? It'd be embarrassing. So he doesn't have that same sort of young man's lack of sense of how they fit into the pack. Most young men suffer from they don't even know who they are, never mind how they fit in the pack. Whereas it's flippity flop for my son. He knows who he is through BJJ, and he knows where he fits in the pack through BJJ. So his ego is almost non-existent, which I think is really important for young men, certainly.
That's good.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. I got to meet him just last summer at a thing called
Yeah, that's
Operation
right.
Pegasus Jump, and we took. He brought his two boys to this thing where they invited a ton of veterans, and we all hung out and jumped out of planes, and it was a great time. It was one of the most militaristic things I think I've done since I retired. But his boys just slid right in, did the exact same thing, just slid up to the conversation, kind of hung out, listened. Cool, walked over there. It was so cool to see. So I love the fact that you brought up progress, because part of the process is recognizing progress. But it can be really hard to do when you're in it, because you're not actually, I guess, let me rephrase. It's hard to do when you're not intentionally watching your progress, right? Like if you want to start working out more, you want to get in better shape, but you don't really know what to look for, you don't know how to manage that, and you just start looking at one metric, say your weight, the process can be really hard, really challenging to see any sort of progress, because it takes a while for that to actually, your body to engage weight loss. What are some tools for some people to manage or to understand the progress that isn't seen so much as like instant versus long term? You guys know what I'm talking about? Shaun, you want to jump?
Go on,
Shaun.
Ryan, you go.
Yeah, sure. I've been a lifelong athlete, and I understand that process of being an athlete through being lifelong. And so if anyone out there is looking to, we'll call it, move to the next level, whatever that means to them, let's say they've never been an athlete ever, and they're just tired of sitting on the couch feeling terrible. Well, there's a process for sure. And it's ease your way into it, but not just ease your way into it thoughtlessly. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what a person does to kickstart their process. It could be just walk around the block. Take all day to walk around the block. Doesn't matter. There is no velocity requirements. There's no timeline requirements. There's no workload requirements. Stand up, walk out your door, walk around the block. Do it again tomorrow. Ease your way into the process. So as you're easing your way in, however you're doing that, you've also got to be thoughtful each day about what you're entering into. So if it's walk around the block on day one, remember that that's how you started. Because 10 days from then, you're going to walk around the block twice. You're going to use whatever metrics you can, the block, the weigh scale, the tree that you do chin-ups off, whatever it is, thoughtfully establish metrics very early on, so that you can establish a baseline on day 1 to day 7, we'll call it. And now you've got a baseline to evaluate the trend over a timeline, where you can say block once, block 3 times, block 10 times, block 100 times. Now you can evaluate over the trend. So it's not just a case of, I'm going to try to get fitter and then not pay attention to each day. You've got to be able to look backwards and form a trend.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Bob?
No, I think I can't disagree with any of that. I think it's great advice. I think in terms of performance, obviously you'd have an end goal, and say it's a fight camp or whatever, then you'd work backwards, wouldn't you? But with general public, I think it's probably more important to come up with a few different factors that you could argue are goals or ways, changes in behaviour. So then it becomes routine, and for me, it takes discipline. There's no getting around that. To become healthy, to become successful at anything, it takes discipline, which I think is probably the key driver in terms of how you can actually change your life. It's discipline, not the motivation that comes after. It's the discipline. So then, what things can you put together in terms of your own lifestyle at the minute? Because you might be a busy mum with 3 kids, a full-time job, and a husband that's not helpful. All right, well, what can I do? It might be 2 minutes a day. I might meditate. I might jump in a cold shower. I might do 10 squats in the morning when I'm brushing my teeth. But if that's all you can do, then that's all you have. So do it, and then just keep building on that, because then it'll reaffirm this quality of discipline, and then from then you never know. You got momentum, then, haven't you? So for me, that'd be it. It'd be harness that discipline.
I love that. Harness discipline and trust the process. This is the other thing that I always heard is like trust the process. But I don't think there's enough development of what the process is. At least that's that's why I wanted to talk about it today specifically with you guys, was the fact that the process is just kind of used colloquially. Can't even use the word correctly. But it's used thoughtlessly, like trust the process. You'll get there eventually, and you will with consistency. But what is the process to you? What is it about more than anything working through that process?
Is it not dependent on the task, though? Is it not dependent on what the objective is?
Is it? Or is the process different? Or is it like the way, at least that I've seen it in my life, is that I find that the process is basically the same, right? It is setting a goal, working through the problems that are in the way, and then eventually you'll get there. There's a lot more specifics in between that, obviously, right? But in my mind, the process is the same for anything. If I want to learn a new skill, if I want to get better at something. But I'm asking, do you think that it should change? Do you think the actual process is different, or do you think it's just more specific to a task versus broad?
I think our minds may work differently, which is cool as well. I think for me, I've found out that I like choosing tasks, hobbies, activities that I can't complete. They're infinite. In terms of jiu-jitsu, I'm never going to complete jiu-jitsu.
Welcome to my world.
I am never going to complete playing the guitar. When I took guitar lessons when I was 15, my guitar teacher went to Spain for guitar lessons. I couldn't understand why. I was like, "You're amazing." Obviously now I get it. Learning a language, you're never going to complete that. So for me, I suppose if I'm understanding it, I may be misinterpreting it or misunderstanding it, but for me the process is just the enjoyment of that moment when you're in the activity. So I connect back with the values. So if I'm doing a task or a hobby that's connected with my values, then I'm not too bothered if I progress at that moment. I may look back and have a nice moment of, I can speak fluently now in Spanish. Well, last year I couldn't. That's cool, but I'm still enjoying it daily. Or I might learn a new choke, or I might learn a new escape, and that's cool as well. But I'm less concerned with that and more concerned with the enjoyment of the task when I'm performing it. I think if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm guilty of this. I sometimes use the process and the path interchangeably. I use the terms interchangeably, which is not correct. If I'm going to be pedantic, I will say this. My understanding of how the game of life works is I put myself on a path. I call it the path. I stay true to my path, whatever that means to me. And so as I'm on the path, there are processes that I will engage in as I move down the path. The path, loosely termed, would be my righteous pursuit of exploring my full potential. So I'm doing my best to become my most awesome version of myself, whatever that means. And that doesn't mean that I'm shooting up fireworks like I'm awesome. I mean, I'm relentlessly pursuing the best version of myself every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade, since I've been aware that I can do that. So the path is what I stay on. The process is what I use to engage in those things that keep me on the path. So by way of an example, and to your point, Bob, which is an outstanding point, is when I started mountain biking. At one point, I was a world champion in 24-hour solo mountain bike racing, but I never thought I would be. I started mountain biking 25 years ago, and as is my way, if you had listened to any of the other things that I talk about, I always talk about 10-year projects. So 25 years ago, I started a 10-year project called mountain biking to see what I could learn. And through the process of learning how to be the best version of myself, as it folds into the path, which is my universal pursuit of exploring my full potential, through that mountain biking process, I blew way past my 10-year project, and I'll never stop because it's an eternal or a lifelong pursuit. And I just use 10-year projects to trick my little monkey brain into believing that, oh, that's a consumable amount of effort. I can understand how much I'm going to work over 10 years, but that's not how it works for me. Coffee started way past 10 years ago when I started my 10-year project, and et cetera. So I think that there's processes that you can start like BJJ, as I did 7.5 years ago, tied a white belt on when I was turning 52 and thought, this is a 10-year project. And to your point, Bob, it'll never end. So it's not like I'm trying to trick myself. I just break down processes into 10-year projects, commit to them, see what I can learn as I move down the path of the several processes that I've always got on the go, knowing full well that the process I'm engaged in will probably never end, but it all folds into the path. So what do I care as long as I'm pursuing my full potential?
That's a great point. Yeah, the reason I wanted to ask that was because that's kind of what I see a lot of times, Shaun, is when people will say trust the process, and they're talking about a path rather than a specific process. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, I guess, is the fact that it's actually processes are processes. Like they are specific, task oriented. You're going from A to B to Z. Done. But I'm really finding that all the things that I do that don't have an end, as you guys are saying, are probably the most enjoyable. Like playing my guitar, like doing PJJ, like being a dad, right? Like that's never going to end, and I get to see it evolve and change and grow and do all the new things as they evolve and grow and do new things. So it's the way in which you live your life, the path that you take is enjoyable, but I think that the processes in between them need to be seen as such, as processes, and not so much as unending goals, if that makes any sense.
It does. I'd like to ask Bob a question as while we're on this subject.
Mhm.
What I found myself at a point in my life now, Bob, I'm curious as to whether you're starting to feel it as well, perhaps. And I base it on the fact that you've been in the game 20 years, you're experienced, you're respected, you understand how to play the game, etc. I now find myself at a point where I understand how to do my processes. I understand the path. It's not like I have to learn another 90% knowledge in order to play with the 10% knowledge that I've got. I have things reasonably well figured out. I, I wouldn't have to learn a whole bunch more to keep doing a pretty good job of what I'm doing. I love learning, but I don't feel like it is as important for me to pursue that knowledge as it is to now start giving my knowledge. I feel like I'm kind of running my life in respect to kind of do my best while trying to demonstrate that if you do your best, this is what it can look like. Or a life well lived can lead to a good life. I'm trying to demonstrate that to some degree out there without making it artificial. So my question to you is this. Over your 20 years of rugby, do you find yourself now trying to be a representative of how to do it well or not?
In terms of rugby or life?
Both.
Good question. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
do.
that's cool.
I do. I feel like quite slightly responsible to hopefully instill some values into the younger generations that are not just limited to younger people. I think if I spot a narrow mindset, and I believe that their life will be enhanced in terms of personal relationships or financial growth or whatever that may be. Not that financial growth is something that's on my top of my list. and I will try and nudge them in a way to be more open-minded, more curious, connect with my values, and just see how that looks, how they feel when they experience that. But then again, if you're met with resistance straight away and a significant amount of resistance, that's cool as well. I'm not going to invest too much into it because I'm just one, it's only my opinion. So I do feel slightly responsible, and I enjoy that as well. I enjoy seeing people squeeze a little bit more out of life than they was doing before they met me. It's quite fulfilling.
Oh, it's so fulfilling.
But at the same time, I suppose that's so rewarding is seeing people squeeze out a little bit more. Yeah, I do feel responsible.
Yeah, good man.
With that responsibility, let's. What are some of the things that you would look to? Like, let's maybe go into a larger scale here. What are some of the things that you think are maybe lacking out there, or that people could do better, or people that should look into, or research, or try to what? Let's go with one. What do you think the biggest one that people could research into to make their lives better, right off the bat?
I think that's a really good question. I think your values. So, what do you actually care about? For me, that was a big thing. When I sat down and looked actually at my values, I found that once I learned that punctuality is a massive thing, discipline's a massive thing, respect for mentors, peers, all these things. Exercise, physical health is a privilege to me. So I believe that now I'm communicating or socializing in those groups a little bit more, being open-minded and talking. So I think for me, the biggest change in my life was identifying what my values actually are, which helped align my purpose, which makes every day fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think regardless of what your job role is, your financial status, your relationship, if you can feel at peace with yourself, you're living each day with purpose and passion, then you've won, haven't you?
I think so.
That's how I see it.
I believe so.
Shaun, what do you think? The one thing that people could do?
To align myself with Bob almost word for word would be the easiest answer, because that's how I feel as well. However, I'll paraphrase it all and maybe simplify it for anyone who's listening. I just try to know myself better. I try to know my outcome better, and I try to figure out how to combine those two so that I'm seeing greater success and I'm enjoying the path more. So I can pursue my outcomes and make it drudgery, man. I can really put the heat to myself and feel like, oh, I'm cooking on this one. I can cook for 20 years. And as long as I'm pursuing my outcome, it'll please me. But what takes the sting out of the grind or the sting out of the heat is pursuing my outcomes and gamifying it so that I can be amused by it, even when it's the suck. I'll find a way to gamify towards my outcome so that I'm at least entertained. Even when it's diabolically bad, I'll try to gamify it so that I can stay on the path towards the outcome that is unknown, but is generalized as looking like maybe that. And I'll enjoy each day. I'll enjoy each year as I unfold the potential outcome that I'm pursuing through a gamified process.
I think that's a great tool for anybody to have, is being able to gamify life. We are just about at time here. I'm wondering, any final thoughts? Any thoughts on the process, on rugby, on anything that maybe some lessons that you want to pass on to anybody? Anything before we shut her down?
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's been the thing that I do now is practice discipline. Now that keeps me in line. Talk about the process. I suppose reflecting in mid conversation is like, well, my process is discipline. I have a daily routine that I'll check off, and within that daily process, it follows my path, which we spoke about quite a bit. So practicing discipline for me is, and I'm not saying I'm military. I'm not saying I don't have fun, because I don't take myself too seriously, and I don't take other people too seriously either. I don't watch the news, it says. And I know you don't do politics, which is brilliant as well. So I think discipline, harnessing that that value of discipline for me is the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's a great one. Shaun, any final thoughts before we?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Bob because it would require 101%. So we'll leave it at 100%. And to Bob's point, as I just recently referred to a handful of days ago, and it was a casual statement that I made that when I get up in the morning, I roll out of bed, I go to the bathroom, use the bathroom, come out of the bathroom, and right away I drop down and I do 8 knuckle push-ups. I call it the start button protocol. Been doing it for a while, you know. And so the reason that I do that is it's 8 is my lucky number, always has been, always will be, right from the get-go. And so it's not that I can do more or less, it's about 8. 8 is the discipline. 8 is the focus. 8 is the thing that will get done each morning. It starts off as a little win. It starts off with the right discipline mindset. It will never change. It is the standard. Go get some.
I love that. I love the checks in the box too. That is one of the most beautiful things I think I've learned in the last decade is the first check in the box where you go, done, excellent. Now I can move forward. Because even if the rest of your day goes, squirrel shaped, now you at least have the one thing that you did first thing in the morning.
Well, you own the day at the start of the day. Take care of the rest as it comes. Throat punch it as it lines up.
This is the way. I love it. Well, I think this is going to be our first early show ever. But usually the length of the ending comments usually lasts a little bit longer. You guys agreed with each other so quickly that I think we're gonna be early now.
You know how easy it is to agree with Bob? It's easy to agree with someone who's been in the game. A hard game. There's a difference between the hard game and the easy game. Rugby ain't an easy game. So you add sweat, blood, tears together, and it equals adversity. And if you get enough adversity sandwiches stuffed into your melon, guess what? You're freaking awesome. And so over 20 years of sweat, blood, and tears, you learn a thing or two. It's called wisdom. And I always enjoy chatting with someone who's got a healthy dose of wisdom.
Well,
I agree.
Really appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Hey, man, you know what? There's
both as well.
I don't. By the way, I don't hand them out too easily, so I'm not a big bat packer. You know what I'm saying? But I do recognize when a guy or girl has been crushing it. It's easy to see that you've got things figured out. I'm glad to hear that, as you say, your lowest point of getting cracked upside of the melon and waking up in the locker room. Been there, done that myself. And it's those moments where upon reflection, you can see that, geez, I wish it hadn't have happened. But because I did get involved with that, I came out the better because upon reflection, it's made me a better person. And that sounds like what you've figured out. And that's something that not a lot of people figure out. So kudos to you.
Yeah, those hard times can unfortunately be something that people sit on for the rest of their lives or harp on or whine about or just play the victim card for the rest of their lives. But to take that moment of self-reflection after a horrible situation and go, I can do better than that.
Well, Bob's victim mentality is now going to occur on the BJJ mats when he gets to drive home crying and wondering why that blue belt put another wicked arm bar on him.
Yeah,
exactly. My game. You know my weakness.
That's right.
I think, unfortunately, as a white belt, everything is a weakness. It's just this is the way it is. When you're a white belt,
I
everything
can't even
is.
tie my belt yet. Sam is disgusted by me.
That's you are the lowest of the low.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I could give you some lessons if you like, no problem on that tie belt. But if anybody else is wondering, here's the key though: you have a belt, and I think this is the important point that I'm going to finish here on is the fact that the hardest belt to actually engage in jiu-jitsu, the hardest belt to achieve, is strapping on that white belt, because you are going to put yourself through adversity in many, many, many different ways, attributed by other people and yourself. So if you haven't yet, get out there, make sure you get yourself a white belt. And while you're in the process of that, you can like the page, you can subscribe, you can hit the bell, you can do all those things so that you can get better every day. You can learn, build, and grow here on The Collective. See y'all tomorrow. Gmo.
Gmo.